So we are in.
We're in, and that's the voice of Anna Ramos. How you doing? You okay?
I'm fine. What
Yeah,
about you?
yeah, good. Thanks, Anna. It's great to get you on the show, and we're really looking forward to chatting to you. So I won't steal your thunder, but yeah, really excited to have you on and understand about your background, the work you're doing, all that sort of thing. So yeah, great to have you on the show. And we've got Keith as well. How you doing, Keith?
Yeah, I'm great, Martin. Yeah, just recovering from football last night here in Sheffield, and I've visited Anna in Porto, beautiful city. I don't know add to over to tourism in Porto, Anna, but it is a beautiful city. Your location where you live, and I remember sharing a nice craft beer with you,
Yeah,
um,
in
which is
Matosinhos.
Yes, and beautiful, lovely food, and people are so friendly. So it's just great to have you on the show.
Thank you
Uh,
so much. Thank you guys for the opportunity, for this invitation. I'm very pleasant to can share some of my research and also some of my practice with you.
Yeah, brilliant. Just on that, Keith, I can remember when Patricia and Anna came over
Oh
Yeah,
presenting
yes,
at
yes,
what was that, 5 years ago, maybe? Something like that. I
more,
remember more,
more.
yeah.
I would say maybe 7 years ago.
Really? Blooming
Yeah,
heck.
yeah,
wow, time
Yeah.
flies.
And
yeah.
I remember the first few slides, you you did a real promotion job on Porto, yeah.
That's a
When you
part-time job, you know that,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
when you're sitting in a cold, dreary lecture theatre in Sheffield, it's yeah, it's a
Yeah, yeah.
bit of a kidney punch. But anyway, yeah, it's a beautiful place. So Anna, just as a start, could you give us a bit of an overview, a bit of background to who is Anna Ramos? I know you wear various different hats around the sports space. So yeah, if we could do that, is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I'm Anna. I'm 31 years old. I work on both files, I would say. So I work as a teacher on the faculty, and I'm also volleyball coach. So on the faculty, I teach mainly practical studies on volleyball, which means that how you learn to play volleyball and how you learn to teach volleyball. And I'm work also with novice coaches, the coaches that goes to the professional internship for the first time, and I do all the year. I'm like academic tutor or mentor that supervise and mainly like scaffolds and supports all the development of the novice coaches, linked and closely linked with the head coach of the club that it's also participates on their development. So my research then is focused on at the beginning during the PhD, mainly focus on how I view it, the practice, how I conceive it. Because since the beginning, I desire to research something that I know that could impact on um, my own development as coach. So, and that's why the action research like emerged, because we are talking about the design that allowed you to intervene and accept that kind of intervention to manipulate the practice, and then try to understand the results of that manipulation and then readapt and replan and so on and so on. So if you think it's a kind of design that every coach do, because every week you have the results of the last match, you look to your team, you try to explore things that you can improve, that you are doing right, then you plan something during the week according to it, and then you try to analyze then or the results on the next match. And like you are always doing action research during your season actually, but now it's just as you systemize that, and as you have the reflection, the observation, and you do it like deeper, it's for me it's an incredible method to link both theory and practice. So all my PhD studies were with that design, and it's also flexible enough to link qualitative and quantitative data, which I think it's a huge advantage, because you can look to the practice in many ways. And of course, that the numbers are super important, because they will guide you in some way. But then you have to reach the detail, and you can only mainly when you are trying to explore variables like the tactical understanding. It's something like that you cannot measure by numbers, you know. uh,
Yeah.
and the game is like that. Okay, you can score 20 points in a row, but you will do that if you interpret what the game is telling you. So, and as a coach, I believe that you have to work with both. So you have to perform well to be able to, like, physically, technically, tactically uh, score, but then you also have to interpret it. So from a coach to work with both, with the quantitative and the qualitative, I think it's important, and this methodology also allow you to do it. So these are the main focus
Sorry,
on my research.
can I just say,
Yeah.
you talked there about the actual design, mixed methods research design. I really like that design. I think it's very relevant for human movement science, sports science, because particularly in the applied areas of our
Mm-hmm.
discipline, and there are people that are engaged with it. But what I really enjoyed and really found interesting from your PhD was how you used it, you went into it, you embraced it, and you really explored that overlap between your practical work, your professional work as a coach and a mentor, guiding these young players, because you were working
Mm-hmm.
with young players.
Yes.
Um, but then you really embraced the theory, the literature, the science as well deeply. And I think that's such a good training for um, coaches. And I in Portugal, I think you do that very well in the education system. So you mentioned your faculty is at the University of Porto, and they do that very well there. I think they link practice and science and theory in a detailed way, as they do at the University of Lisbon as well. Another big important area, sort of organization using qualitative research, mixed methods. So yeah, I think you underplayed it there because you're a modest person, but I mean, Martin, you had that for your research, didn't you? Your PhD.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, mixed methods. Yeah, sorry, I'm scribbling away. I've got loads of notes. I'm not. It's not a test, Anna, but yeah, I really like some things you've spoke about there. So, some of our colleagues, or two of our colleagues, Danny Newcomb and Rusty Earnshaw, they talk a lot about the game is the best test, which I think and this weekly test that. And it's a good test of the practice design that coaches come up with. And linked to that, I really like this idea of, I think what you said was like coaching really is just a cycle of action research. So we spoke in the past about like fail safe. It's a series of fail safe experiments, really. This continuous cycle of action research, and then using mixed methods to do that. So yeah, I think that's a really good way to think about coaching. And I know when we had Jamie Hamilton on, Keith, he said that really sport is a human endeavour. and we can get lost in the numbers a little bit, certainly in sports like football or soccer, where
Yeah.
it's really data led, I would say,
Yeah.
in some cases. But I like your point, Anna, about the human element as well, the quantitative insight from the players. I think that's really important. Yeah.
I think that you only have one disadvantage, which is not a disadvantage, but it's like you only can assess or explore a limited number of participants
Mm.
because and like academically or theoretically sometimes for the journals and so on this can be a problem because many of them are just trying to find a good finding to generalize, you know.
Yeah.
And fortunately things are getting better, and getting better I mean uh,
Mm.
n- now the editors and so on are open to other perspectives, which is really good.
Mm.
But it's like a little disadvantage that sometimes me and Keith face it throughout the publication process. But a good point,
That's another story. That's another
yeah,
story
yeah,
we have to. I mean, it's obviously it can be challenging. But you're right. You make a very good point there. A lot of journals in the sports sciences keep a traditional view where they're almost focused on research as experimental in nature. They're
yeah,
not really used to different ways of accessing knowledge and data, evidence, if you like. And some of that evidence is qualitative, and some is quantitative. You know, and that's the mixed methods where you mix both, and you can get richer insights when you compare the numbers with some personal insights, emotions of players, observations of players, perceptions from athletes as they undergo training that you provide, how they feel after competition, before competition, etc. All of these things.
completely,
Yeah.
completely. Just because the qualitative data consider the context, and we spoke about the context so many times. But then when we are just focused on the quantitative data, to be honest, you are not considering the context doing that. So I think it's something that fortunately is being like replaced. I would say, and it is very 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 good. And now link it because Kid, you said that here in Portugal, we Lisbon and Porto, that we are good doing like the applied science, and we are, I would say, good doing that because we work closely to the clubs,
Mm.
which is something very important and useful for both parts. Not only because our students are allowed to go to the practice and to explore the
Mm.
practice, linking some concepts that we try to teach on the formal class,
Mm.
but also because for us as researchers, it's good to collect data in in a realistic file. Um, and also for the clubs, it's super good because they are someone qualified working there. So
Mm.
the things that we try to do here, and I think coaching is tremendously complex.
Mm.
When you think about how you have to manage the players, how you have to manage your staff, and so on and so on. But then when you just think about designing the practice, I think it's easy if you understand the concepts. As you
Mm.
can get the concepts, then you can immediately link it to the practice and
Mm.
become that concepts useful on the practice. And I can give you can give you a lot of examples, but about the representative design. If
Mm.
you know the game, if I know like the basis of volleyball match, then it's easy to
Mm.
understand the movements that we're looking for on the game, the movements that are important on our game model, offensively, defensively, and so on, and then break it and create a drill on our practice. But then it's not only the drill, because you can have millions of drills to work on the same thing. It's about the feedback that you provide during the drill and the way that you explain the drill, because the athletes can just replicate, or the athletes can understand why they are doing that. So they can have some meaning on what they are do. And I think that this is the challenge, because you are every time, and now I'm trying to link the concepts with the practice. As a coach, every day we constrain something on our practice, and we constrain that based on the previous information of the last match. And constraining that, we are also creating opportunities so that they can act as we want, according to our game model, or according to our plan for the next match. And also bridging again concepts. We are trying to create opportunities so that they can read or raise more and more their knowledge of the environment, because
Yes.
because during the match you want that. It's completely linked to tactics, I would say. And if you want to understand the game tactically better and better, you have to create opportunities during the practice so that they can read. So one super important thing, almost everything that they do, they have to decide in our practice. And it can be like the most simple drill that you can imagine, but there is always some kind of decision making.
Lovely. Yeah, really good.
Um,
Can I just say, sorry, I love the way you wove in some quite complex theoretical concepts there. You talked about opportunities for action there, i.e. the affordance landscape,
yeah,
coaches designing an affordance landscape. And you emphasize knowledge of the environment. In other words, opportunities for players to get involved in decision making and problem solving, and even the simplest practice tasks, drills as you call them, can involve simple decision making, simple problem solving, building up the confidence and motivation of players to get to more detailed. So hidden in that practical language there's a rich scientific foundation and theoretical understanding, and yet you made it sound very simple in terms of applications.
Yeah.
Because I have to speak simply to my players as well.
Yeah.
I love the way you're not from a research perspective, and I love the way you're not avoiding the messiness of the context. You spoke about context, the being on the court, collecting data in the messy, real environment of that sport. I think that's so important. You're not taking it into a lab where you're just trying to reduce everything down. And I know you mentioned about trying to satisfy reviewers and whatnot, maybe from a research perspective, research method perspective. So I think that's really important. Yeah, just as Keith said there, just about the some of the practices I can remember. Was it 7 years ago now? Yeah. Some of the examples you were showing us when you the different teams you were working with, and the environments looked, just sitting there observing that, they looked really fun to be a part of. Like there was some really unique practice sessions that we were observing from the videos that just looked really engaging, just from I'd like to go and take part in that. So could you maybe unpack, without giving your secrets away, because Anna what would it be? A European level coach, is that right? So you're going into the Champions League.
Yeah.
So
For the
pretty
first
high
time.
level.
For the first time, yes.
Yeah.
Not
So
me, all the
big,
technical stuff, I would say. So I'm just the assistant coach, but
yeah, I
yeah.
think you're underplaying it, but without giving any secrets away. So could you sort of maybe describe for anyone listening the sort of practices, what it might look like if you're working on a specific
Yeah, I can give you an
thing?
example of I would say a traditional week of work for us.
Yeah.
If you
Good.
want. So I will try to speak more focus on the practice, but then create some links with the theory. Okay, but
Brilliant.
sorry if I'm being much practical now. So
Fine.
typical week, we play usually on the National League. We play on Sunday. Then Monday it's our day off, and then we practice from Tuesday till Saturday. And Tuesday and Thursday we practice like morning and afternoon, so 2 times per day. On the first 2 days, so Tuesday and Wednesday, we usually focus more on ourselves, and that means that we try to watch the video from the last game, try to understand things that we can improve as a team and individually, and then it's just about us. So if we were not so good playing on a positive situation on side out, sorry, this is super specific, but this is just an example.
That's
Or
fine. That's
if we
good.
were not okay playing the high ball and so on, we will constrain the practice so that that situation can happen more often. For instance, because we always have this framework or this logic on our training session. So we start with a game, which is I would say highly constrained, because it's like 3 against 3. It's a ludic game. It's a league, an internal league that we have with the players. So we have 3 players on each side of the court. We are playing with 2 balls at the same time, and with as the 2 balls are in the air, you only can do 4 arm pass. When 1 ball is out, you can play free. And then you have winnings individually, and at the end of the month, the girl or the member of the staff that wins has a gift. It's like that. So we start engaged with the practice, I would say. Then we can have like a warm up with ball control and so on, just to start being focused on the practice. And then we move for something like particular that we need to improve, and we can talk about serve and pass, you can talk about block, you can talk about defense, and so on and so on. And after that, we go for a pre 6-on-6. 6-on-6 is like a match during the practice. We have a pre 6-on-6 when usually we emphasize what we want to work then on 6-on-6. So let me give you the example of a high ball. A high ball is when you attack off the net, and you will face for sure 2 blockers at least, and then they will be organized. So it's a situation that it's hard to score. Most of volleyball game are in situations like that, so they will call it out of system. So on that pre 6-on-6, we constrain it in the way that they will have to attack a lot of times a high ball. And with opposition, so they have to decide something. We can create rules that they if they miss, they can lose 1 point, something like that. And then we move to the 6-on-6, and we keep emphasizing that. So that we can play like 4 levels. So you can have the first level until you not score the high ball. You cannot move to the second level, which can be like a free ball or something like that, and then you can end on the third level with another couple of balls. I would say balls like the way that you start the play.
Oh yeah.
So we have this kind of rules. I would say rules, constraints, creating opportunities so that they can practice what they are not so comfortable to do. But in the beginning of the practice, we explain why we will do that. So we show the video, they watch themselves playing, repeating that actions on the match, so that they can, on her head, create a link between what they did and what they will do now, and find the reason.
Nice.
This is important for us.
Yeah.
I think that they are professional athletes. They will do it anyway.
Mm.
But they can do it better if they understand what they need to do to become even better.
Mm.
So on first 2 days we just focus on that. Then from Thursday until Saturday we start being much more focused on the next opponents. So we have the video sessions first individually. So the spikers on the other side, the main trends, if they just attack cross, if they just attack line, what we will block, blah 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 blah. And based on the that individual characteristics, we start designing our drills. For instance, on the block, if we will block line against the outside hitters on the blocking drill, they know that they will block line more times or more often against the outside hitters, so there is also this kind of link. um, then on the second video session we study the setter of the other side, which is I would say the main piece of the offensive system.
The
Yeah,
play.
yeah. Um, so and then on the practice again, we add in some moment of the practice the characteristics of that setter so that everyone can be engaged on that, because and we spoke about that so much times inside the staff. The hardest thing is to put everyone reading the same situation on the same way. This is the challenge, and you can only do that if one day you can reach it, but you can only do that if you are like repeating, but repeating differently, so you will repeat the action, but the tactical situation is always different. It means that everyone have to think, everyone has to recognize like the same thing, but in different ways and according to their rule on the team. And if you are just fixing a situation, obviously they will get it. But the game is not like that. The game is always dynamic. You will face a lot of situations that you expect, but also a lot of situations that you don't. Sorry. So you have to be, I would say, brave enough to give some chaos and to embrace it on the practice. So typically the week is like that. Then there is a relation between volume and intensity. So at the beginning of the week we have a huge volume, and then it will decrease and intensity will raise. It's the normal.
Yeah.
One thing that really stood out for me, Anna, was what I was trying to get to, which I think you described really nice, is that when you were showing these videos and you were saying, right, the intention is this or the aim is this, you really the sessions were really well designed. So it was creating the need for the athletes to really get better at this thing that you were trying to work on. That's what really struck a chord with me, is how well designed the sessions were and how much thought had gone into creating that need or inviting the type of behaviors that you were looking for.
That is challenging. I think over the years you start creating some strategies to get there, and I share that with my students a lot of times. I have one class that is only focused on how can you create a drill. It is just about it. And okay, the first thing that you need to know who are your players. This is the first part. Okay, I know what they need to work, and they also know what they need to work. So this is the first step. Then you have the goal, and you define the goal, and your players also understand the goal. That's okay. And then you have the structure of the drill. Of course, you have the facilities and materials and so on and so on, the number of balls, the number of coaches, the boxes, and so on. Okay, but then you have the structure of the drill. So what I want to work and where should I place the players? the boxes, the coaches. Then when I create the structure, I can have different sequences because inside the same structure, I can create, I would say, I can serve line, I can serve cross, I can block line, I can block cross, I can attack, and then I can go for the block, and then I can attack again and go for defense. You can create different sequences according to what you want to work, and you can give more repetitions. For instance, if you want to dig and then attack, but if the focus is on defense, then you will dig more often than you will attack. So
Mm.
simple things like this, and then how all the drill will rotate to provide the same number of opportunities for everyone. And super important, the criteria of the drill. As you can change the criteria, you can adapt your practice. Because one of the most difficult parts, I would say, for every coach is you don't design the practice for Martin or for Keith. You design the practice for the the volleyball team of I don't know, Porto. Okay, let's talk about us. You design the session for the team, not for one player. But then you can reach like the individual parts of the session first for the feedback that you provide, obviously, but then adapting the criteria inside the same drill. So I would say that if you have a player that is struggling on attacking cross, so you to perform well or to give you a goal for the drill, you have to attack 4 out of 5 times cross and score. I don't know. Then I can invent something, but focus like with the criteria, focus on that player. And over the years, this is the way um, that we have be able to reach each player.
Mm. I like that. I like the way that you've got a mix between the synergies formed in defense, in attack, in order to achieve a particular intention. And it's lovely to hear that practice is framed by intentions all the time. And the intentions aren't just plucked out of the air by the coach. They come from data analysis, analyzing performance, analyzing opponents, analyzing your own performance, etc. And that's wonderful to hear. And the other thing that struck me is the you talk about a specific type of repetition without repetition, drawing
Yeah.
Bernstein's concept, so that there are adaptations made. So the players just can't turn the handle, as we say in England, go through the motions, just, repeat and try and make things automatic. Because in the game, as you say, there's the uncertainty there, the ambiguity that opponents create. And players have got to be able to perform under those conditions and not just the practice conditions where everything things may be isolated and reproduced. I like that emphasis.
Yeah, for sure. But about repetition and repetition without repetition, I think so. As you can find a structure, then you can create different sequences on the drill, as I said, and that means that we never, and this never, it's not the right word, but it's difficult during the season that we repeat one single drill, because we can have the same structure. But then as we are always adapting the sequence, it's always different, so you can introduce some of variability doing that. And as you can as you can understand, it's difficult. Don't repeat a single drill during a season. You are talking about 200 more probably practices, so a lot of drills, it's hard. But inside the same idea, and the idea that players already know, you can creating some adaptations and introduce adaptations on the drill and introduce some variability on that. So you are repeating without repeating, which is important for us for everything that we spoke before. But then we believe more and more that mainly on not only on this challenging level, but sometimes a little bit more. You need some comfort repetitions, like repetitions that you just need how it will be. You just need to be there, to repeating and repeating to get more and more confident for the match. And we also are sensible to that, and we provide that before the match, before the big competitions, because this is important for the player. And I think coaches also have to be sensible, understanding that. As always, a balance between, and look to your players and find, like many times, just on the face what they need. It's important. But yeah, this variability that you can add by switching or adapting slightly the drill, I think it's super important, because like we are here. If we, like, as a players, go to the practice, and you know what the practice will look like, and that on Tuesday you will do this, on Wednesday you will do that, and so on and so on. Like, just wait 1 month and you don't have more players on your practice, you know.
Yeah.
Or they will be there again because they are professional, but they will not be engaged.
I think what's really nice is how attuned you are to what's going on with the players. I think that's really important. I think sometimes, certainly in that cycle of you're doing things week on week on week on week, and and you're about to go into the European competition as well. I think coaches can get lost a little bit just in the washing machine of what's going on, and they lose sight of, or they lose touch of, being really in tune to the players and understanding that. I think, Keith, for me, the way Anna's talking about practice design here, it's how detailed and sophisticated it is, and how much thought goes into what's going on, which is obviously underpinned by a framework, theoretical framework, which is, it's really pleasing to see. It's not just, oh, I know these 10 practices work, I'm just gonna keep churning them out. It's really thoughtful, it's meaningful, it's based on solving problems that, performance problems that are presenting themselves throughout the season, which is really good.
About that, I can share a secret with you, which is.
Do you want me to press pause, or we'll have to share it?
No, I can share a personal secret with you, which is, I force myself to think about the practice on that way. At the end of each season, my book of drills, it's something like this, just with like a clean amount of papers that I try to write, and so on and so on. I put it on the trash.
Brilliant.
Okay.
At the end of every season. And why? Because I want to force myself and think of new things. So don't be just comfortable with the things that I did in the past, and then force me to look to players on the next season. Obviously, then with the years, when you want to work something, you have the structure of the drill on your mind. It's like I cannot fight against it. But like, again, the sequence, the feedback that I want to give them on that drill, on that situation, on that context, with that kind of player, I'm always trying to refine it and to readapt it. Was the way that I find to trying to being more and more innovative during the practice.
I think that that's a really good example. I mean, we talk about lots of the guests on this podcast have talked about skill adaptation from a player perspective, but I think what you just talked about there is coach adaptation.
Yeah.
Yeah, coaches not just repeating techniques, not going to a playbook with these drills and practices written down and then just repeating them and selecting one out, number 9 this week and number 15 or whatever. And that is quite extreme. I've never heard of a coach that says, okay, that's a clean slate. I know what the principles are, and I'm going to see what the players need. So it's context dependent coaching.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And totally agree. And you said something that is so important, kid. Because we are always concerned about the players' adaptation, but the players can only adapt or being adaptive if the coach also has this kind of behavior or the way that he or she conceives the practice and so on. So you cannot ask. It's the same with autonomy on decision making and so on. So you want that your players decide blah 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 blah, but then your technical staff, you just work with one guy in controlling everything. So you know players are players are smart.
Yes.
So if you want that your player behave on that way, at least you have to try to do the same.
Mhm.
Otherwise, like it doesn't make sense. And yeah, very important point. And I think that it's also a file that we can explore more on our research. The adaptability of the coach, not only the player. The way that the coach can evolve professionally to create the conditions so that the player can adapt more and more and more. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if you want more skillful players, you need more skillful coaches,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Or interaction
And many
between the
times
two.
the coaches just put the pressure on the players and forget that they are also responsible.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that was a wonderful sequence of discussion, Anna. But Martin, I wonder whether it's worth Anna taking us through one of the studies from her PhD, because I think it's really important for listeners to hear this, because we talked about the research being mixed research, mixed design, which is not rare, but it's certainly not many people who go into it and then get it right. And in my opinion, I think you've provided a model for other researchers. So that's why I'd like to talk about it, because you actually looked at action research, which again, there aren't many people who are looking at action researching in a very applied setting. And it's over a cycle. And I think one of the studies was over 2 seasons, which is rare. So imagine that some of the listeners don't know what this research is about. So you're explaining it to a coach what it involves, because some of them might be interested in undertaking research of this nature. So if you talk us through that, maybe.
Yeah.
Just one more constraint on that, Anna, and I'm not trying to catch you out. Maybe as well, how much impact one of these studies had on your practice, the players' performance, that sort of thing. If you may share that, is that all right? Sorry, layering it up there, the complexity, but yeah, that'd be great.
I will try to touch on every point that you mentioned. So it was a study that basically tracked the tactical understanding and the tactical behavior. So the tactical understanding we explore it with the qualitative data, and the tactical behavior with quantitative data. So on the tactical behavior, basically we measure it the way that the players position it on the court during transition, and transition in volleyball, because it is the game phase with more movement and more readiness, I would say. And then tactical understanding, because the focus, so you can move on the same way on the same time if you interpret the same thing. This is the idea. So you can understand, you can measure the tactical behavior, and then try to explore what they can identify and why they are moving at the same time and for that way, on one way, according to their role on the team. This was the basis of the article. So this is something, as you can understand, it's complex. It's something that it will not change in 1 week or 1 month. You need time for this kind of adaptation and for this evolvement. And that's why we had such a long period of intervention. And over that period, we did like 3 action research cycles. On the first one, each action research cycle, you have an observation, then an analysis of what you observe it, you plan the next intervention, you reflect about it, and then you implement, and you go over and over again in each one of these cycles. So we did it 3 times over the season, and we found that on the first cycle, we were playing with a model that players already knew because it was the same on the previous season. So they were like comfortable with that model, and you can see that the tactical behavior was, I would say, high because they were the synergies that they have. So they look to the same and they move at the same time. So they were okay, but the tactical understanding was not sophisticated. It was just like simple, because also the game model was very simple. Then, because the context requests it's, the opponents were getting better and better and better, so I decided that we have to adapt our game model. We have to, for instance, on transition, we have to add 2 blockers, we have to organize better our defense, and so on and so on. So we raise the complexity of our game model. And what we saw on that second cycle was that they drop a lot the synchronization that they have on block on and defense, because they were playing in a different way, in the more complex way. So they decrease. But when they decrease, they raise a lot the tactical understanding. So they were performing worse, but they were understanding better the match. And then we keep working. We gave them more time, and on the final of the season, so the third cycle, they were more synchronized on block and defense, and they were knowing more and more and more about the game. So the tactical understanding was also on the top, I would say. So basically, you can understand that. So the main finding and the main message of this paper: you will perform worse when you are in a more complex game model, but at the end of the day, you will understand better the game. In a long perspective, on that team, 5 of that players, so almost half of the team, played on the national team.
Wow.
We didn't win on that year.
Yeah.
Was not, but it's not. Honestly, it was not my focus about that kind of result.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I have 5 players that played on the national team, like
That's
3-4 years after.
Yeah. Really, that shows you the development. It's a bit simplistic to sort of say we did this and then we won the tournament, that sort of thing. It's a bit of a simplistic narrative, but development of the players is what you're talking about there. And I love the way that you're talking about, you've emphasized that really nicely, that in ecological dynamics, how there is room for cognition,
yes,
knowledge of. So this relationship between cognition, perception, and action, and the coupling of those processes.
Yeah,
Very,
and
very
I can share some strategies that we
Mm.
did on this season to trying to raise that knowledge of because, for instance, I start to do the video sessions with the players. I have all obviously the constraints of a season, and the youth players, they were like exams on the school. Sometimes they were not able to do in every single practice. So, for instance, I asked it for some players to watch the film, but that watching was like guided, because I was with them, saying that, look to this girl. What can you find here? She's attacking like from one place to another. What is this trend? What do you think? Okay, you think that they are always attacking line. So what can we do on our defense? uh, are you okay? Are you comfortable on doing this, or you prefer doing that, and why? Always trying to engage them, and also trying to become them like more tactical aware of what they can do. And then the player that was with me have to explain this to the girl that missed the practice, and everyone was involved. This was one of the, I would say, the best strategies that I found. Not only because the players can see themselves, but because they can see the opponents and plan, because they did the game plans to play against the opponents. Also, um, during the focus group, that was for me a data collection resource, but also a moment where I can give them some theory, so let them think about not only about volleyball, but how they have to be uh, aware of the clues during the volleyball match.
Yeah,
And
information. The
yes,
information
and
available.
yes, and doing that, I think that they can, like, then during the match, catch much more details.
Yeah.
um and it was, I would say, like an indirect way to work on the knowledge of not only about the drill, because
Yeah.
super important, but
Yeah,
then
of course.
being like prepared to identify the critical situations,
Yeah.
and doing that, raising the knowledge of. So as a coaches, we have the rule to play on our knowledge about, so trying to create a strategy, spread it, and so on and so on. And then you slightly can touch on or trying to give them a click to raise the knowledge of.
So solicit their actions and enhance their readiness potential in the scientific literature, in ecological psychology. That's the approach you take. But what I really like is you talk about a game model, but the game model is all shared affordances. The
Yeah.
affordances shared by the opposition block, your own players' movements, which player is in better position to attack the ball when you're attacking. It's just shared affordances and the synergy formation. And of course, that's what the game model is. So it's not just in a playbook. It's not a sort of, a theoretical thing that they can explain. It's built on practice as well, and synergies formed in practice.
And for me, the game model exists just to create an opportunity to spread and raise the performance, the potential performance of your players. So
Yes.
you create your game plan based on your players' characteristics. Obviously, there are principles that you think that are super important, that every player can do, but then you use it for two reasons. The first one I already said, which is you will try to potentiate and create an order, like a logical order, so that everyone then can be, I would say, automatic, during critical situations, so we play like that, and I already know what you will do, and if you don't do it, I know how I should behave. So it's everyone is linked and engaged and so on. And then the second reason is, in our case, sometimes we are playing like Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday,
Wow.
blah, 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 all the time. Many times it's not the game plan, it's your game model that it's behind, that
Yeah,
have to sustain you. Then the game plan, you will just do like 1, 2, 3, 4, a few like adaptations, but it's your game model. So working on your game model more and more and more, it's important. And it seems that it's easy because a game model, it's simple and you are always doing the same, but it is not, because you have always the same problem. You have to look to the other side, and you have to interpret the same. Six players looking to the same and interpreting the same, it's not so easy.
no, exactly. Yeah.
Anna, just to go back to the study. So, and I know I take your point about generalizing. Sorry, but so the more complex the tactical component, potentially in the environment that you were looking at there, the performance on field, or sorry, on court performance dipped, but the players' understanding maybe of the game more generally was increased.
Yeah, because they need time. So
Yeah, yeah,
they know what they should do,
yeah.
but like physically
Yes.
they cannot correspond to it. So
Yes.
they basically they need time, and they need to keep working on that so that they can understand and perform.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We're
isn't it?
talking. Sorry, Martin. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, isn't it interesting when you see new coaches come into a sports team, and they're introducing a new way of playing,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
he normally dips. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? You get it massively perturbs that system, and you get a dip in performance. And of course, in the brutal world of, like, well, I'm thinking football mainly, you're just not afforded that time, are you?
I
It's
know.
like you've got to hit the ground running. So,
Mm.
well, there's two things that you might need to be very astute as a coach. You know, what might work in the short term, but what are you trying to do in the long term? And then if you're an owner or a CEO or whatever, it's like,
Yeah, I
maybe
think that
managing up that
Yeah.
process. Yeah,
I was extremely lucky, because I was able to explore and to test different things. No one was like pressuring me that I have to win this or that. No,
Yeah. Yeah.
even the parents, because sometimes it's also a problem. I don't know in England, but in Portugal, the parents, like,
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
a huge problem. The parents were like the best that I worked so far. They were just concerned about how happy the girls were playing,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I was really super lucky with these contacts, and I know that it's not traditional, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think to go back to the literature, if you look at the literature and skill acquisition, and I think Carl Newell's work on skill acquisition leads the way on this, shows this quite clearly. In the acquisition phase, that's the phase where they are learning the new patterns, the new movements, the new tactical behaviors, the actions. Then performance can dip in the acquisition phase. But then when you look to transfer, that's when you get the benefit. That's where you show learning, and that's, for me, you provided a practical example of a lot of experimental research which shows exactly that. The learning phase, you will get a dip because
yeah,
people are getting used to things, and and we're talking about high level sports, so microseconds matter
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
terms of a slight delay in the adjustments, and it's that adaptation. So coaches, really, the message for coaches is, when you're implementing new game models, players need time to pick up shared affordances of others, etc. But then the benefits will appear in the transfer phase gradually. When you get to competition, you will see the benefits in competition if the coaching is good and if the coaching allows players to make the mistakes, explore, and adapt. Time to adapt.
Yeah, for sure. And you can see that on the quite often on the youth, but you can also see that on the preseason, on the high level teams, I would say. During the preseason where the players don't know each other,
Mm,
you can see how they are rushing in understanding the opportunities that the girl on the side is creating because they are not used to play next to each other.
mhm,
And then so you many times you are trying to teach the game model and work on it, and you can
mm,
see like a decrease
mm,
on the performance because they have to be focused on their own technique, but then on the spot that they have to feel, and they don't know how to react when someone is on the right place or on the wrong place. They don't know how to react with someone that is strange that are by their side. And then
mm,
over the season you can see how they improve and improve and improve and get used to it. But yeah, for sure, I think it's normal that you have a slightly decrease, and then
mm,
you need the like time to have like a
mm,
rebound and go up
mm.
and sustain. It's not just about go up, it's be able to then sustain a little bit, hold it
Consolidate-
a little bit.
Consolidation
Yeah.
phase, yeah. To get that, and that needs time, as you said. So,
Yeah. And many times people don't understand that you need time. Not you as a coach, but also you as a player.
yeah.
And that's why, in developmental environments, academies and whatnot, that there should be lots of challenge, stretch.
Yes.
Used the term chaos before because although you might, as Keith said, you might not be seeing an immediate performance gain, the long-term learning benefits could be really beneficial. So
Exactly.
rather than just replicating maybe what the first team's doing in terms of way of playing and that sort of thing, it's exposing the young developing athletes to a variety of different
Mm,
maybe ways of playing, lots of complexity, lots of learning long term.
mm,
Yeah.
And for sure, and you can see like more and more when you reach the high level and you have top level players, everyone is pretty good, everyone. So
mm,
yes, you can take advantage if you are physically like superb, okay, but it's like one player, two players, three players, I would say. Then they are always they all of them are similar. You can differentiate for the others if you can see what the other guys don't. So, and I'm saying that because you can do it if since the beginning of your development you were invited to do it. Otherwise, when you reach the senior level, I would say
mm,
it's hard. I will not say impossible, but it's tremendously hard to teach them to read the game.
mm,
It's the same thing if now I try to learn to play piano. It's not impossible, but it will be harder
mm,
than it could be in if I learned that with like 5 6 years old.
mm,
Um, it's the same, and even on our level and working with the senior players, you feel that you can understood soon which were the players that during the development phase were like the coaches had that concern on working about reading the game, understanding game, and so on, and players that they don't. Because when you are physically strong, you just keep scoring and scoring and scoring. But then you reach a point that the guys on the other side of the net are also strong. So you keep
mm.
trying and you don't score anymore. And then you have to think. If you are not able to think, you are out. And
Good point.
being
Very good.
being super honest is this.
Mm,
Yeah,
So
at that top level, having intelligent players that can pick things up quickly is
yeah.
so helpful.
Yeah.
It,
Reflect. They can reflect on things and problem solve and have a positive attitude to improve.
Yeah, and many times, people think that they are talented, and they are, and
Mm,
they
mm,
are, because yeah, they are. But then I'm always thinking that yeah, they are talented, but they always were invited to think about the game over and over and over and over again.
mm,
So I would say that it's a mix. Okay, I'm able to, and I like to do it. I like to think about the game, but everyone during my career stimulated me to do it. So you have both. I think it's so poor when you look to a player and just said, "Oh, this guy is super talented." Yes, but he worked a lot first, and then I'm sure that behind that player, it was a huge staff. And staff, I'm saying like everyone, not only the coaches, but the friends and family and so on, that invited the player in some way to keep thinking about the game.
yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that I really liked about your PhD program, Anna, it was, I think this has probably been downplayed a little bit because of the wonderful applications that have emerged from it. But from a theoretical perspective, one of the things you looked at was, and you showed, was that the methodologies that coaches use, such as using verbal information, instructions, and feedback, the provision of knowledge to players. You differentiated between knowledge of and knowledge about. You showed actually that some of the methodologies can be explained from a constructivist viewpoint and an ecological dynamics viewpoint. And I think that could easily be misconceived by some people as suggesting that constructivism and an ecological approach can have the same meta-theoretical understanding. But that is not what you did, and not what emerged. In other words, you weren't advocating that coaches can pick and mix from either, and you've got this whole mix of constructivist and ecological dynamics ideas. They're completely separate. So we distinguish between knowledge of and knowledge about, which one of the approaches preferred rather than the others. The things, one approach would prefer a game model as internally represented and built up, elaborated and constructed, and another would say that a game model is shared affordances. So you distinguish that, and I think that was very helpful for sports scientists and sport pedagogists. And it's important that people don't misconceive the studies and say, "Oh, this shows that you can just mix constructivism and ecological dynamics."
No.
You never mentioned that at all. So I
No,
want
no, no.
to talk about
Yeah,
that.
it's clearly the point that you raise. So putting in a simple way, they are theoretical different,
Mm,
but on the practical file, they can complement each other,
that's right.
and that's the point. So theoretically, they came from different perspectives. They have different principles, different premises, and so on. Um, but then, when you look to the practice, and this is the advantage of working on practice, you can understand that you need both. Because yes, you need to understand that your player has a past, and that they will interpret the information and all the constraints that you will try to provide them in different ways. Okay, and also that you can keep building the player, like technically, tactically, cognitively, and so on and so on. But you also have to understand that if you want to enrich your practice, then you have to be able to pick the right constraint to create the right action opportunity, to be representative on what you are trying to do. But then, yeah, you can be representative, but you also have to create a meaning again. So, and you start mixing intentionally I think intentionally it's the word, because yes, you are connecting the approaches on the practice, but you are doing that because you have a purpose. Um, and even you can, I don't know, maybe we could connect other approaches, we can add it even more, because the practice is like that. It's so complex, and let's become to the beginning. It's not about the things you don't know, or you don't need to know everything. You need to know the main things to structure a practice, the theoretical lenses of the principle, like paradigms and so on, and then just use it, and use it according to what you are watching on the practice. But yeah, it's a really good point. They are not the same. They are not the same at all. They theoretically they are different, but then as we show it, they can complement each other on the practice.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, what a fantastic chat. I think we've covered quite a lot of ground there. So yeah, unless you want to go anywhere else or chat about anything else,
We
I think
could go on all day, to be
yeah,
honest.
I think we could. Yeah.
We've all got work to get on with, and Anna, I mean, you sound a really busy person. I mean, you you're now coaching at Champions League level, and you're realistic about that. We had a little chat before the podcast. So we wish you well in your new endeavors. Always challenging yourself. Embracing uncertainty, and obviously learning. And yeah, I mean, we can see how I think you should have a glittering career as a coach ahead of you. You've already had a glittering career. I mean, a wonderful achievement for someone to say, that you're developing young players, etc. And then at the end of that season, after you've implemented a new game model, and there's a dip in performance and the transfer, 5 or 6 of the players get into the national squad. From a developmental perspective, I mean, that's just a wonderful achievement. So we wish you well with your future endeavors as well.
Thank you so much again. Amazing chat. It was also an opportunity for me to keep thinking about my practice, the things that I did, the things that I'm doing now. So it was also uh, a really good learning moment for me. Super happy to speak with you again, and to connect with you again. So thank you so much, and I hope that it could be in some way helpful for you and for the podcast.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely, Anna. Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're just waiting on that invite to Porto, aren't we, Keith?
You don't need a formal invitation. You are already invited. You know that.
Oh, brilliant.
Thank
All
you.
right, well, great. Thanks for thanks for your time and a fascinating chat, and all the best in the future. All right,
Thank you
cheers.
so much. I wish you all the best.
Yeah.